said, so how do you feel about getting married? This was in October after we met in August.
Well, was he a Christian, though? That's the question.
He wasn't. We got a call. They told us there's been an accident.
And I said, where's my son? I had to make a decision. Do I believe what I say I believe or not? That's when the change took place, was when I was up here to join Life Action.
Why do you think it's important to support this ministry?
If God has blessed you with the resources, don't invest them in things that will deteriorate. Invest them in eternity.
Welcome to Change Lives, a podcast from Life Action. All month long, we've been taking time to look deeper into what Life Action is all about, why we exist, how God is working, and how you can be a part of it. In today's episode, I'm joined by Ron and Jane Evans. Ron serves as our Chief of Operations and a member of the Life Action Board, and both he and Jane have been part of this ministry's story for decades. After serving with Life Action years ago, they've returned in retirement as faithful partners, deeply committed to the mission of seeing relationships revived and lives changed by God's presence. We'll talk about their journey, what drew them back, and why they've chosen to spend their retirement years pushing this mission forward, helping fuel what God is doing through Life Action. This conversation closes out our year-end campaign, a time when we invite friends and ministry partners to help strengthen and sustain this work. Nearly 80% of our annual revenue comes from donations from people like you who believe in our mission of reviving relationships through transformative events. Now, here's Ron and Jane. Today I'm joined by Ron and Jane Evans, and familiar faces to many around here. Some folks who might have been with the ministry years ago, and now you've both decided to come back. And so we're interested in hearing that story today. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah,
I
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
So before we get into that, though, how do you introduce yourself? So you're back here in the community. If you're meeting somebody at church and they say, well, what do you do? How do you answer that question?
Yeah. I just say I'm privileged to serve on the leadership team and a board member at Life Action.
And I think of myself as a supporter of his role. So I'm a retired school teacher, taught 5th and 6th grade and then 3-year-olds. So when we moved, I gave that up. And so I'm here helping in any way I can. So
That's great. Yeah, so she's part saint, right?
Yeah.
But the school
I
teacher
don't
part.
know.
Yeah. Her nickname is Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Practically perfect in every way.
Oh, no.
Well, let's talk about that, the early life upbringing, because I always find it to be very instructive of the rest of how the story turns out. So, Jane, can I start with you?
Yeah.
Can you talk about?
Yeah, I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I had 2 older brothers and 7 and 9 years old. So I was older than me. So I was kind of like an only child. So that's why they say practically perfect in every way. And
You're
the
the
only
baby.
girl, you know.
Oh, the only girl baby, of course.
So, but so I grew up there, did not move at all. I mean, my dad worked in the paper industry. So the first time I really moved was when I went to college. And that's where I met Ron. And we've been moving ever since.
Yes, we'll get to that. I know you have a number of how many moves, and that will become evident.
Yeah. So, no, I grew up, went to college. I went to one in Milwaukee. I didn't really like it. Transferred to Luther College, and that's where I met Ron.
Okay.
And then the second year, I was an RA, and I got on the thing, and Ron was one that had been there for like 3 years. And so that's where we met at a retreat, and a year from then, we got married. 23.
Okay. But tell me a little bit. I want to touch in on a couple of those points. So, growing up in Green Bay, youngest girl, only girl.
Right.
Was faith a big part of family life?
My parents went to the Methodist church and stuff, so I've always gone to church, but
Okay.
it wasn't until I went to actually a Billy Graham movie
Okay.
at a theater, and that's where I came to Christ. It was one that they put evangelistic movie out.
Really?
And then from there, I reconnected with Campus Life Group, which was met Green Bay is divided into East and West, and so there's a group that all of us met at. So a lot of times when they say, "Oh, you're gonna get back for your, school reunion," my reunion is with those kind of people.
Okay.
So, yeah, so those were my people as far
Yeah.
as Bible study and growing. In fact, I'd go to church with my parents at the Methodist church, and then at night I'd go to a Baptist church up the street because that's where everybody kind of met and stuff. So, um, yeah, so they were believers, but I had never heard about a personal relationship with Jesus, and so it was through that I came to that part of my life, which was mind-boggling and mind-changing and everything. So,
You remember that transformation? You
oh
remember
yeah,
that moment?
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. I was so lonesome. I mean, I was the only, kind of felt like an only child, and I was just really lonely trying to fit in with everybody at the high school, went to public high school, and when after that, I just felt like, okay, I'm okay. I have my people around me now, so, yeah, so it was good. It was a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah. And what did you go to college for? What were your dreams?
Elementary education.
Okay.
So actually I transferred, and then that's when we met at school. Well, you were an education major, kind of sports major more than anything. No.
The gym teacher track?
No, he did the econ and math, and that was not my thing. But yeah, so I love student teaching, and I've been teaching, well, actually homeschooled our kids for 17 years. So, and then when we moved, one time I actually got to be in a preschool. Now, I really felt like, oh, I wish I would have done this earlier. I just love the kids. And I had 3-year-olds, so parents loved me because I would take them, and the kids loved me because we had fun. So it was
Yeah.
a win-win for me.
That's so great.
Yeah,
That's so great. Well, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to let you take a rest.
Okay,
And I'm
great.
going to switch over here.
Yeah.
So tell me, where did you grow up? What was life like?
Yeah, grew up I called Decorah, Iowa, my hometown. It was idyllic. I go back almost every year because it's just one of those really unusual places. It was a great place to grow up. 7th grade all the way through college. Really involved. So everybody in that community went to church. It was Sundays. There was only one thing open in town. It was a gas station. I mean, it was that kind of community. Everybody had a nuclear family, and so it wasn't whether you went to church, just what church you went to. And so we were one of the outcasts because we didn't go to the Lutheran church. It was a very Norwegian community.
Yes.
Yeah, we went to the Methodist church, and so yeah, involved in it. Went to the Sunday school, the Bible study, led the MYF, and had a religious life. And later on, reflect back, didn't have a personal relationship, but had a religious life. I grew up in through high school and through college.
Mm-hmm. And did you have siblings?
Yeah, so 2 older brothers, 1 younger sister. My brother Rick and I are the closest of the 2 years older, and we were good athletes in the community, and we got to play sports together. We got to run track together and play basketball together. Yeah, so that was a big part of who I am.
And athletics has always been a big part of your
Always
life.
has been,
Yeah.
probably always will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the things God has gifted me to use for His glory now, and for that time for my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So growing up in an idyllic community, what are the plans then for the future? You plan to go to college? What do you think you're
Well,
going to do?
yeah, definitely go to college, and wanted to be a coach. I mean, that's really what I wanted to do, is be a coach. So I liked econ, so I got a major in econ. I hated math, but that's the only jobs that were being hired was math teachers, and so
You're a practical guy.
I thought I'll push through all these math classes so I can get hired. And then got my coaching certificate and teaching certificate in college while I played 2 sports and worked part-time. So my grades weren't great, but I graduated and got a job coaching and teaching. For the first year, I taught or coached junior high football, junior high basketball and junior high track, and in the summer I coached swim team. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I didn't enjoy the teaching as much because it became very stale for me pretty quickly. And so the second year I was trying to move up. I was the high school boys cross country coach and track coach, and then the junior varsity basketball coach. And after 2 years of frustration, I left that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So before we talk about what you did after that, I want to hear the story of how you met. So you kind of hinted at it, but what was that like?
Well, we were both in our retreat, and so uh, I had heard. Actually, my roommate worked with Ron in the bookstore.
One of my jobs.
Yeah, one of his jobs, and so when he started showing some interest with me actually at that retreat, we were going through all this kind of how to work with adult kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking over and he's like reading a book. I mean, he's not listening to anything because this is like his third year. So I'm looking over there and then like, okay, we're going to take a break. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go over. I kind of heard of him because of my roommate. And I went over and I said, hey, there's snacks out there. Do you want me to bring you some? And so that kind of started the relationship.
Caregiver from the get-go.
Yeah. And so we dated off and on. And finally, I looked at my roommate who knew him better. I was like, I don't know if he's a Christian or not. I knew I wanted to marry a Christian. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, he says he reads his Bible and he says, he goes to church. We see him at chapel. I said, what do you think? She's like, I don't know. So we ended up, I just asked the Lord, show me, and we ended up getting married. We met in August. We got married in the August after that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, and then that's when we moved to Iowa. So I had never moved at all. We moved to Iowa and started
That was the first
teaching.
move.
Yeah, and at that time, they wouldn't hire a couple in the same school district. So I taught in a Catholic school,
Okay.
and he taught in the public school.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was an eye opener. And I had kids. When I went to interview for that job, it was like a blended fifth and sixth grader. And the first day I had the kids, a little boy came up and said, "Are you going to stay the whole year?" And I'm like, what does that mean? So I actually had the teacher and like 2 or 3 the year before quit on this group of kids. So I was determined I'm going to make it through. But it was a good experience. Taught me a lot. So
So my version of that story starts in the spring, before Etzel Schweitzer, football coach. I was taking a class for teaching, and he stops in the middle of the class and he says, boys, I want to tell you something. If you want to get married, there's never going to be a better crop than you got right now. True story. So you better open your eyes. You're going to be leaving here. You're going to be stuck in some little town, and you aren't going to have any. So you better start looking. And that was in the spring. I was like, over the summer, I thought, I probably should be thinking about this. And so when I came back and she introduced herself, I thought, Etzel has a good idea here. So I started to pursue her, and by October I said, hey, I'd like to go home with you on fall break. She's like, you would? Yeah.
I forgot about this.
So that was, October. That was, and so I went home and we were there and I had a talk one night. And I said, so how do you feel about getting married? This was in October after we met in August. And she said, I don't know. How do you feel about it? I mean, like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think we should get married. We should be thinking about that. And she just didn't answer.
Let me think about this.
Let's think about it.
I have no idea. And so we officially got engaged then. We were apart over Christmas.
Right.
She was in Europe traveling, and I was in Europe playing basketball. And we both missed each other a lot. I wrote letters every day. And we got back, and I said, don't you think we should get married? She said, yes. So we did.
What was it about her?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a lot, but I guess it was just her spirit, just a gentle, sweet spirit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what was it about him that you thought, well, I'll give it a shot?
He was very caring. Even though he did a lot more dating beforehand, it was like once we started, he really committed to it, and I met his family as an awesome, awesome family, and um, I just felt peace that I could talk to him about anything, and that to me is important to be able to communicate that way. So, yeah. Plus, he's very handsome. So.
Well,
It was a long time ago.
well, was he a Christian though? That's the question.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
So,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we started right away. We our first Sunday we were home, we started going to a church, and so we were involved in church and got involved in leadership and helping there. And when we moved, we were there. We were down in Nashville, Tennessee, which is how we got there. Is a little bit of story. About 6 years into the marriage, and I just lost all of my support, right? Didn't have any support system. It was just she and I in Nashville, Tennessee. And so we were in a Methodist church, and they did the Bible. It was a Sunday school class. It was just called the Bible class. And John Setzer was a teacher. And we got to John 3, and we spent 7 weeks on You Must Be Born Again, debating what that means. And all I knew after 7 weeks, I was not born again. That's all I knew. And it was like I didn't tell anybody that. I just knew that. So I started on this quest and started reading and praying and listening. So I traveled about 3 hours in my car. This is before cell phones. This is before anything. So I would listen to every Christian radio sermon I could for 3 hours. And I'd listen to everything. And during that process, God just started converting my heart. And then we did a Emmaus walk. I don't know if you've ever heard of Emmaus walk. Did a Emmaus walk, and that was very fundamental, very important in my process. But 6 months later, all I knew is I was born again. So it was kind of not like a one day. It was kind of like a 6 month period where everything changed. And Jane knew it because she got me a present at my birthday that year.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I got a CD, and it was a time when Michael Jackson was good, so I thought, oh, I'll just get him a CD, to listen to. And I gave it to him, and he looks at it, and he goes, could I exchange it for, like, some Christian music? And I just thought, here we go. We're on the right track now. So, yeah.
So did you obviously noticed then as his wife?
Yes,
for 6 years
yeah.
then.
And it wasn't like he was a bad person, but it was like sometimes friends were more important, to him than me in some situations, which, and I'm like, okay, maybe, I always said to him, I said, well, I want you to be the head of the household. And I want you to be able to, I want to be under your covering as far as decisions. So, and he kept saying, well, before he was a Christian, he kept saying, well, let's make decisions together. And I'm like, okay, but I really want at the end to be able to say, it's up to you. I've always felt that way. And so after he became a Christian, he realized what I meant by that, being able to be the head of the household and as far as covering, meaning like he's always there, he's following the Lord and directing our family. So.
Those first 5 or 6 years of marriage, there's a lot to figure out, isn't there?
There is a lot to figure out. Only by God's grace and a lot of patience on her part. Yeah, there is a lot. We had 2 children, had our second child in Nashville, and so you have the children. I had multiple job switches already, and moved to a couple different communities, and yeah.
Were all these job switches in education?
No, I had 2 years in education,
Okay.
and then I decided I wanted to do something that was much more entrepreneurial. And my dad had left. He was actually dean of students where we were, and he left the education world and started in the furniture office supply business. And he said, "Well, why don't you come sell for me?" And so I did. I didn't know anything about it. and found I just really loved office furniture and design. And so I did that for him for a couple of years, and then they expanded, and I took over another part of the company, and then that broke up, and that's when we moved to Nashville. As a national manufacturer of furniture hired me to be their rep for the state of
Oh,
Tennessee.
wow.
And so yeah, we were there for about 3 or 4 years, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that was move number 3 or 4 by that
Well,
time, Jane?
Probably 5.
Probably
Well,
5.
Yeah.
we moved in some, the same place, same community a couple times, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the hardest moves for me because I was pregnant and 6 months and moving to the South and not knowing anybody.
Mm.
And so it was really a time to, the house we moved into, we rented a house and walked in, and it was an older lady. They had taken down, pictures, and you could see where the pictures were because it was so dirty. I'm just like, ugh. And so
And it was hot.
it was hot,
Mm.
very hot. So.
It was in the summer. Yeah, so nobody comes outside.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's like winter here, like everybody's in, and
Yeah.
there everybody's in. So I'm like walking in, and like, does anyone even live in this neighborhood? Nobody was out.
Because you're such a relational
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
I like people,
Uh-huh.
and I'm one of those people that you walk in the car, you're walking in the store or something, and like an older person, all of a sudden, I don't know, I have that vibe. They're like, "Hey, could you help me get that down?" And then all of a sudden, you're talking about something. And I enjoy that. I feel like that's part of my ministry is to
Yeah.
be able to feel people out that way. So.
Yeah, yeah. She's very interruptible,
Yeah.
isn't she?
Yes.
I mean, just people just
Right.
flock to her,
Yeah.
and she takes the time
Yeah.
to listen to whatever
Yeah.
you might be doing.
One of our new things is between Ron and I, we bought Dollar General gift cards
Uh-huh.
because we had a friend of ours that was working with guys out of drug rehab and stuff, and we're talking about like they always ask for money, how do we deal with that? And it was kind of cool because they said, "Hey, just get a gift card." So we really had fun lately having gift cards in our car
Mhm.
and seeing like a need when you see somebody and you just kind of have a feeling like looks like they could use like it was like $10, but I'm like it just to know that somebody's caring about what they're
Yeah.
doing and don't have. So
Right.
we do fun things like that
Yeah.
together.
So is the plan then to stay in the furniture industry and
Plan to stay in the furniture industry, and so we were in Nashville, and they recognized me as one of the top 4 out of the country, and they moved me to St. Louis, bigger market. We were in St. Louis, had our 3rd child in St. Louis, and was doing well there. And Dad's business back in Ames burned to the ground.
Mm.
The Sunday after, or right before
Rough
Thanksgiving.
October, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, burned to the ground. And so went right back to see Dad, and he was broken. He was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so by God's prompting, I said, what if I quit working for Hayworth and come back and help you rebuild it? And he just said, if you'll do that, then we have a plan. And and I see God's plan in all of this.
Mhm.
So my best story about coming back and working with him. So there's 2 stories. One is the business became successful. It was a little under $1 million and struggling to survive. And over the 5 years we had together, we built that into a little over 3 million sales. It was profitable, but the more important thing was, when I came back, I sat down with my dad and I said, while I was in Nashville and St. Louis, my life has really changed, and shared my testimony. And Dad looked at me and he said, I appreciate what you said. I've always gone to church because it's the right thing to do and because it pleases your mom, but please don't talk to me about that anymore. And so I was like, okay. And so we worked together for about 2.5 years. We went to a conference in Kansas City on a trip back. He said, I'm ready to talk to you now. Tell me, he said, tell me about, what your faith. And I said, why? He said, because I purposed in my heart to watch your life for 2 years before we talked about it to see if you really changed.
Mm.
And I see the change in you, and I want that.
What will you have?
And so
Wow.
I got to share with them from Ephesians 2. It's not by our works, but it's by faith that you're saved. Grace by faith through grace. and I got to lead my dad to the Lord. So I think that, you see a picture, we just see in our lives just story after story where God has ordained something that we see as tragedy,
Yeah.
a store burning to the ground. I mean, literally, he was a, I figured, I thought I was a pretty good athlete. He was a Division I college athlete, and he coached at a pretty high level, and then went into business, successful, everything. And he was first time I ever see him really, really broken. Just and so that was part of God's process of getting him ready for me to be back there to be a testimony for years before I even got to share the gospel with him. And then he was a changed man. He already had 2 bouts of cancer and died at 62, and I got to preach his funeral. And then I was 37. Then I got to own a business because my mom was 63, and that was the only income she had was from the business, and so there wasn't somebody who was looking for it. So I became a business owner, and over the next 5 years built that from that to multiple locations and a lot larger business in Iowa.
Yeah. So what was it like seeing that from your perspective?
We knew that we needed to come back, and I think really we knew that we were Midwestern people, kind of like why we're back here now.
Yes.
To continue on later.
I like
it. Down south was fun. People were very genuine, but it seemed like a little bit of they were welcoming like to a level, and then they kind of didn't let you in. Yeah. And so, I mean, there were some that were super, but heading back was good because we had family, and then had now grandparents in the picture and stuff like that. So that was encouraging. I taught a little bit, went back, and at one point worked with junior high kids. Decided, I don't know if that's going to be my jazz. So, and then we started having a family. So and then we started when we were in St. Louis. Where's that?
No. Well, he went to kindergarten.
Yeah,
there.
Kindergarten there, and that's when we realized because of he was very not. I mean, everybody thinks their kids are great, but he really had a gift of learning, and so that's when we kind of took him out of school and started homeschooling. So.
And we came back to Ames.
And Ron's was like, well, let's do homeschooling. And I knew how much it worked because I was a teacher.
Sure.
And I'm like saying, well, I don't know. And he says, well, let's just do it 1 year at a time. So 17 years later.
You had homeschooled all of them.
All of the 5. Well, the last 2 we put into, because he was at a Christian school heading it up, we put him in school for like 5th and 8th grade. Right. Otherwise, that was my deal. So. Yeah. And in Iowa, that was kind of hard when we moved there because it was illegal to not have your kids in school. So they were actually arresting parents for truancy. And so we got, so we didn't really, we felt secure because we both had our teaching degrees, but people that didn't, I mean.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kept when we came back down, we got our license current. So that they wouldn't take our kids. They'd take them and put them in the foster system.
Yeah, the foster.
No.
Yeah.
If you didn't have them in public school, that was the law.
And then
unless you're a licensed teacher.
Yeah. And they kind of looked at you as our kids said people would call them the basement dwellers because you would do your homeschooling at home.
You had to hide.
You had to hide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really weird. But
that
was kind of a cool time because I had to use my teacher certificate, and it was like I could be a supervising teacher for families to make them legal. So I'd go visit them, and they'd use my number, which was how they wanted it to do. So make sure. So made a lot of great friends that way. But it was another kind of off the side. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I know I'm homeschooling.
So you don't stay in the furniture business though, because at some point you go back.
Well, yeah. So I was always a risk taker. I got pretty extended in growing my business. I was sole owner. And my bank said, we're pretty uncomfortable with how far you are. So we want you to put all your personal assets into the business. And I said, no. And they said, well, then, we're going to call your loans and all that. So I ended up deciding I'd sell the business. I didn't know, and the company that I sold it to wanted me to work for them, which I tried for a little while. and I didn't do well trying to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I was just praying, and a contact of mine was back from Iowa, but he lived in Nashville of all places, and they were buying companies around the country and doing turnarounds for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we would love for you to move to South Bend, Indiana, and become the regional president over this organization that we're buying over there. And I thought South Bend was in the south part of Indiana because it said South Bend. I didn't know where South Bend, Indiana was, frankly. I knew Notre Dame was there.
Home of the Irish.
Yeah, but
That's about it, but
that's all I knew. And so it was, I don't know how many moves we were to there, but that was probably move 12 or something. And so we moved to Granger, and I became the president of that organization in South Bend. It's called Prime Office Products. I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And that's when the change took place, was when I was up here to join Life Action.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So how's that happen? Berrien Center Bible Church was the church we ended up going to.
Okay.
We searched for a while and make friends at the church and get involved. I'm involved in the churches. And so my company, after a few years, said, you're doing so well, we want you to take most of the East, and so we want you to move to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, okay, there's another move. And so I had some people praying for me, and one of the people praying for me was Byron Paulus. And so I asked him to pray, and he said, I'd like to meet with you about it. I said, yeah. I said, what are you hearing? He goes, I'm hearing you're supposed to move not to Cincinnati, but to Life Action. And I said, well,
That sounds very much like
yeah. And I was naive, thinking he just said this to me, right? Yeah, he said to everybody you ever talked to. But I took him seriously. I said, well, tell me about that, and came out to Morris Drive at the time and toured what was going on. And I was trying to get a handle on who Life Action was. Now, my wife knew because she had listened to Nancy
Leda Moss on the radio.
and she was a fan.
Yeah.
And so she helped kind of fill me in. And I just kind of laughed, and I was still talking about how we're going to move and all that, and just kind of didn't want to deal with it for about 6 months. And finally, I just said, "Oh, I got to really truly pray about this."
And that's when we went out to the lodge. We went out, he and I, by ourselves, and had other people praying for us. And we just spent a whole day in prayer. Like, is this really, the whole idea of like having a really decent salary to raising your own salary
Yeah.
was really kind of scary. We
Very
had
intimidating.
kids in
Mhm.
college already,
Yeah.
and
And two in college,
two in
and
college.
two at home, and Zach had passed, which we didn't tell that story.
yeah,
But yeah, so we I remember asking Byron. I said, what's the pay? He said, how much can you raise? And I said, well, probably a lot. He said, we have actually a limit at that time of how much you could raise, and I think it was 50 or 55,000 was the most, which was about a third of my current salary.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you raised your own money for your health insurance and stuff. And so we had two in college and two at home, and I had a company car and all the perks and stock options, and so I'm wrestling with it. And the guy, one of my best friends in the corporate office, I called him and I said, I told you I'm kind of thinking about this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And he said, oh, I'm in. I said, what do you mean? He said, $400 a month. I said, what do you mean $400 a month? I'm going to support you $400 a month as long as you're there. I thought, oh my, this is
It's too
this
easy.
is a confirmation.
Yeah.
This is a confirmation from the Lord. I already got people asking if they can support me,
Right.
and they already know how much they prayed about.
Mhm.
And so and they said, we'll give you as much time. You keep working until you get your support raised, and you can take your time, during your work time.
And they thought it was only going to, like a couple, take a year or
Yeah.
something to do it.
yeah.
And 6 months later, we had everything raised.
Yeah, we got done pretty
Pretty
quick.
quick.
Yeah, my sales and marketing background.
Yes, that helps.
And,
That
and
helps
connections all over the Midwest.
Right.
Yeah, I had a lot
Yeah,
of
a lot
connections,
of
and so it was
Yeah.
pretty quick to be able to raise.
Yeah, God
raise my
moved
support.
you to all different areas,
Yes,
and
to
then
be able-
you had
yeah.
community and all
Yeah.
those
Good people there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
So
good.
it was pretty remarkable. So we sold our home in Granger and moved to a smaller
Niles.
home in Niles, and
Yeah.
kind of just changed our lifestyle. At that time, I was also going to Bethel in the evening working on my MBA.
Mm.
And so I still had some courses left, and Life Action helped me with my course, paying some of my courses so I could finish up my MBA. And yeah, so that was a big transition time.
What were you asked to do here first? Why did you?
Well, I was director of the lodge, so
Okay.
it was interesting. We were there, and when I got here and started working with that, I came to I came to Byron just a few months later, and I go, this role is like maybe a half-time position. This is at a speed and level that is a lot slower and and is there anything else I can do? He said, well, I'll get back to you on that. And about a month later, he said, we've had an opening for the scheduling all the road teams. Can you do that? I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So got to take over the road team scheduling, and that time we had 4 teams, and so now I get to do that. So still directing the lodge, and then I got to do pre-summits. We used to do pre-summits for all of those. Every 3 weeks, I'd travel and go preach someplace, and yeah, really enjoyed that.
Your good friend Dell was along with
Well,
you.
and that's when Dell and I became very close, during those days, and so we got in a lot of trouble together.
Yeah, because you would do those together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd first do them together, and then we just plotted all kinds of mischief.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how we could change and disrupt things, and
Yes.
we started scheduling into churches that Life Action had never been into before. Everything from very reformed to very charismatic, and traveling and introducing Life Action all over the country at every pastors' conference I could go to, and getting bookings. And we had the 4 teams booked out a year and a half when I left, maybe 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really a great time of growth.
Around what time period was that? Are we talking about?
That would have been 2004 till the end of 2006, or about 3 years I did
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I've heard stories of the mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of you, if there's a box and someone tries to put you in, you both flatten the sides and run away.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it sounds like yes, risk-taking is up there when
Right.
you leave a pretty cushy job
Yeah.
and jump into ministry. And at the same time, you're still raising kids. Some of your
Right,
kids are in
right.
college. So you hinted to the loss of your son.
Mhm.
And I know that's a really important part of your
Yes,
story.
it definitely is.
Yeah.
We were here in South Bend area. Actually, we're at the Granger house at that
That's where we
time.
were living. Yeah.
Yeah, living in Granger. And so Ron's family is really close. So they'd always do this vacation and
Back in Decorah, my hometown.
Yeah, so we were doing that. Just a little side, his dad was so into stuff that he had the whole time we did competitions via family and stuff. So we were just having a great time. So it got to us leaving, and at that time Zach brought his girlfriend along with us, and so we were waiting. Well, there's another story into that, but he had his car. They went tubing. He had the keys to the car in his pocket. Lost
Swim
the
trunks,
keys.
lost
Some
only
cheese.
set of keys.
Yeah, so that kind of
In the
thing.
river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the river.
Yeah.
So we were waiting around till his car could actually be able to use it. And so he and Ron were talking about how he would get back, because this was in Decorah, because he had to drop his girlfriend at the airport, Hannah, back here for volleyball, and so
Back in South Bend.
South Bend. So
He was heading back for a senior year at Wheaton.
at Wheaton College.
So he had graduated from community college.
Yeah.
He started when he was 16, graduated at 18, and he was the outstanding graduate in the state of Iowa, and just really gifted academically. Entered Wheaton as an 18-year-old junior, and so just going to go to law school. And so he decided to go back for one more year because he wanted to be with Becca. He'd already told me he hoped that would be his wife, and he wanted to introduce her to the family. That was in August, and he was heading back to Wheaton with Becca in the front seat, and then daughter Hannah in the back seat of his car.
And so they talked about which way to go and they agreed on it. And so we left because we were coming back here and they left to get all the other stuff done. And
We were going down to Boone to
yeah.
see people we knew down
Yeah.
there, and they were heading back to Chicago.
Yeah. And so they we're just traveling and I was actually driving. I'm no direction sense, so I was just driving and he was doing his MBA work.
I was studying, yeah.
And so we got a call and the calls, that's before I could hear what was going on, but they said, "Can you pull your car over?" So we pulled our car over and they told us there's been an accident. And so Ron's like asking, where's it happened, what happened and stuff. And,
Where is everybody?
where is everybody? And they said, well, Hannah's, fine. Becca, passenger on that side, she, like she's in shock, but she's talking, but just broken arm, a lot of different stuff. And then Ron goes, well, where's the driver?
Yeah, where's my son?
Yeah,
where's Zach?
where's Zach? And they're like, well, we can't locate the driver right
They
now.
think he might have been life flighted someplace
Yeah,
or something.
life flighted. We're like,
So
that
we're
sounds
like, so I said, well, where are you? And they told me, and I said to Jane, who was driving, I said, where are we? She goes, I don't know. I was just driving.
I don't have
Because she didn't any direction
directions.
sense. So we stopped the car, and I said, let me drive. I got another phone call from the highway patrolman, and I said, where's my son? And so we stopped the car, and he said, sir, I have to tell you that your son passed. And
And they were like two peas in a pod. The first thing he did was,
well, I had to make a decision. And really my decision was, do I believe what I say I believe or not? I just said, everybody's got to get out of the car. We were on the side of and literally standing in a ditch. And so it would have been Jane and I, and then Andrew, who at the time was 18, and Zach was his hero, and then Rachel and Daniel,
Right.
because Hannah had been in the car. And I just, a couple of things I prayed. First, I prayed we'd have no root of bitterness. Somehow I knew in my head that when parents lose a child, divorce rate's very high.
50% or so.
So I just knew that, and I had to say, Lord, I believe what I said I believe. We know that Zach's with you, and we're going to trust you in this. And then I told the policeman, tell them that if there's a car going 90 miles an hour, you just let us go, because I gotta see my daughter. She was in the hospital, and I have to see my son. Got to the hospital.
Yeah, we got to the hospital, which was interesting because Hannah was there and she wasn't, and she didn't get hurt at all.
She was in the back seat without a seatbelt on.
And
Zach was passing a truck, large curve. Car came the other way. I don't know if it was sun or whatever. It was a Saturday morning, 10, 11 o'clock. And it didn't see them too late. They both went to the ditch, and Zach turned the car so he took the impact. So Hannah she was just cushioned in the back seat as it crushed. It was almost so she just bounced around. Didn't have airbags at that time, and so Becca was the front seat. She went unconscious, and so later Hannah told us that she got out of the car and she watched him, had to watch her brother die, just take his last breath. And no one was there. The other car, both there had airbags, and they had both gone unconscious. So she was just sitting there, and later, the ambulance and everything shows up, and Hannah says to one of the ambulance drivers, "Where was the lady who was sitting next to me?" And she goes, "There was
nobody here.
There was no one here. God sent an angel just to sit by her, the side of the road."
Yeah, she was just waiting to and I just
she was with us. So
God provided that person.
So we got to see our girl, and I said, I want to see his body, and walked in, and Andrew was right behind me. He was 18 at the time. He caught me.
Yeah.
He's the one who caught me. He prayed over me. I just fell back because my knees went. never had that happen before, never again.
Mhm.
And he caught me and prayed over me. And
The guy that was in the accident was there at the hospital too, and so we just talked to him and his wife. We didn't never met his wife, but he was there. And it was interesting because at that point, I just went up to him and I said, "We don't blame you for this. We're Christians. We just need to deal with this. We're not going to be revengeful or anything." And he just, pretty much couldn't take it in and just left. So later on, I just wrote a note to him. And then we had because of insurance, we had a lawyer, not, and I tried to do stuff with it. And the lawyer said to me, he goes, "Well, I wouldn't write any more letters to him." And I said, "Well, what?" I just wanted him to feel that we weren't holding him accountable for that. And he said, "Well, he's afraid that you're going to come and see him and he can't deal with it." So, but yeah,
so they turned around and sued us
yeah.
for the accident.
And the policeman came to I was homeschooling. The policeman came with the deposition or whatever,
Served us.
served us, and knocked on the door. And I'm like, "Why are the police here?" And all the kids are like behind me, like, "Why is the policeman here?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So we open the door, and the guy, super nice, looks at me, goes, "I'm really sorry to have to do this, and I know what it means, that you lost your son, but here's this."
So that for emotional distress, it was caused by his estate. They sued us.
And so
yeah, so it was,
So you had that.
yeah,
Just,
yeah.
And
So
the kids didn't understand that. Like, "Mom, Zach's gone and they're there." And I'm like, "I know, it just doesn't make sense." But
yeah, but we never held him accountable.
no, we
and
just
anyway.
never, yeah.
So it was all kinds of opportunities to practice what we learned at Life Action.
Huh.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't Life Action yet, but it was all kinds. And when we came to Life Action, the first Seek Week, we talked about our story, and people prayed over us and knew us and really helped us
Right.
heal on the
Right.
healing process. Still a couple years later.
Yeah.
And then when we were in the working with the lodge, that really prepared us for unbelievable stories of things that pastors have gone through that they were trying to deal with. And it was like, okay, now we understand that, at least to listen to their story and the depth of, sorrow or whatever they had dealing with their issues. So it was really, and in fact, one time, right after that, we were eating dinner and got a phone call, and we've been getting a lot of phone calls. And Andrew looked at us and said, "Is anyone going to call with good news?" Because everyone would call and say, "Well, I know so and so, they lost a child. Can you talk to them?" And he's like, I said, "It'll get better," But it was like we were.
We had a long season of ministry to people who
resource.
lost children.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
long season of ministry.
but,
So you relive those with them.
yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it was important though, because when you've gone through that, you have like a legitimacy, of being able to talk and understand and relate a little bit. They trust you, I guess, is what
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And how did you ensure that your marriage stayed strong through that? Because that was one of the first things you
Yeah.
thought about.
Yeah. I mean, we talked a lot about where we were in the process.
mhm.
We were honest with each other. There were days when we were, really depressed, and there are other days when, we were doing, and not always at the same time.
Mhm.
I remember someone told us that there's going to come a day fairly soon when you're going to quit getting notes, because every day you'd live for the mail.
People,
Because people would write notes, and so you'd live for the mail, and that was just age, and I don't know, it was just that. I
all of a
remember,
sudden you realize, okay, that was, I mean, when you do that, it's like, I want everybody to remember Zach. Not so much all the tragedy that went with it, but we really want him. And so, like, an interesting thing is later on, he was buried in Boone, and I had homeschooled most of my time there. And the librarian knew our family real well, and she called me up, and we were in a different place at that time. She says, "There's been some vandalism by the cemetery, and
by your son's
by
plot.
your son's plot." And I'm like, "Well, what?" I said, "What's the deal?" And she goes, "Well, I went out there. My mom's is right by Zach's, and there was like all this Dr. Pepper cans surrounding the whole his burial
plot.
spot." And I started laughing That was his favorite drink. That was all his friends coming
Aw.
On his
to
anniversary, came out and
to have
toasted him
a
with
toast him with a Dr. Pepper. So, I mean, things like that are simple, but they help us remember, like people are remembering. And we still have, on that day, people sending us pictures going, here, we're saluting Zach with their Dr. Pepper. So, I mean, even this last past time,
Yeah.
we did that. So it's,
Aw.
yeah. And I think that one mine is I was so tired after the whole thing. I remember telling Ron, I'm like, I don't think I can homeschool anymore. I'm too tired. And Ron said, I don't care as long as we do reading and math and we get through this time. But we each gave each other license to heal, in different ways. So
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah. And do you think part of that, when you realize just the fragility of life and like the things that are the most important, do you think part of that played a role in why you decided to come
Yes. I mean,
to Life Action or in ministry in a sense?
that is part of it. The other part of it was in my MBA class. One of my classes, one of the projects, the optional project was to write your life statement. And so I wrote my life statement, which is I will purpose in every way possible and plausible to store up treasure in heaven by emulating my Lord Jesus Christ and being a leader, a servant, a teacher, and a friend, and later added loving the unlovely. And so when this came up, I said, what better way to store up treasure in heaven than being a full-time missionary? I'd looked at going to seminary for a number of times, that I should go a pastoral role. And so it became a pretty easy decision from looking at things as opposed to how can I have the best stock options and company car to how can I store up treasure in heaven. And I said, yeah, full-time ministry, and still being entrepreneurial was a really good fit for me. I thought I'm going to do this, and then our kids, always afterwards said they talk about two phases of their life: when we had money and we didn't have money. that's how they divide the whole time. We talked about that recently, but
But our parents weren't really on board at that time. So when we started homeschooling,
on homeschool.
homeschooling, and then
When I did this,
then we did
really
that, they
off
thought we were like really
lost it, huh?
We had really
gone
lost it.
down
Yeah.
the hill. So, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
ended up becoming one of our best promoters of stuff. But yeah.
And so for 3 or 4 years, you're serving as scheduler, you're running the lodge, and probably and doing ministry together.
Yeah.
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 And what calls you away then? 'Cause you don't.
So again, having run my own business and run another business for someone else, and then being at that level that I was that second level, I was finding myself frustrated that I couldn't make my own decisions. I couldn't run the show, so to speak, and so I wasn't looking, but I was actually I'd finished my MBA work, and Bethel hired me to teach college classes in the evening, and so I was doing that because I don't know, I guess I was bored. I don't know.
I think so.
I just kind of need something else to do, and I was preparing for one of the classes, and when I was doing my research, I saw this thing for a position in Adrian, Michigan, to be the president of Lenawee Christian Ministries. And I thought, well, that's really weird. It had nothing to do with it. And I just looked at it and I brought it home and I said, I don't know why, but I think I should apply for this. And so I just put my application in, and through a process, they said, yeah, we'd love to have you come join as the CEO of this ministry. And so it wasn't that I was dissatisfied. I was just looking for that. And so was that ministry over there had a full-time Christian school, which in my first board meeting, I found out that I was also going to be head of the Christian school, and had a fitness center and a camp, and had a lot going on, and it fit a lot of the previous things I'd done, both education and then sports, and had athletic teams, and so so we moved over to Adrian and started to be full time. and I got paid a salary again.
When we had money.
I'm gonna have a little
We
more money
really
again.
did.
Yeah.
We look back, and I think the only thing that our kids didn't have was maybe a movie or something. You know what I mean? But it was.
But we had the Wonderland, so we
Yeah,
could go.
yeah, exactly.
Still,
Still
it's
have the
still important.
Wonderland.
Uh-huh. And so now you're kind of back in education, but also in business, and you've
Yeah.
moved, I don't know, 18, 19 times
Yeah,
by
yeah.
then. And so you do that for a little bit.
Yeah, so I did that and then moved to, I was there for 6 years, and this was a really, really good board experience. The president of my board was the president of Huntington University, taught me a lot about board work and how to be a good board member, and also the perils of boards. And this board was a family-run board,
Okay.
and they brought a new family member on who wanted my role. They didn't want the responsibility, they just wanted all the decision making.
Mhm.
And so I had a couple of conflicts, and my board chair, a president of Huntington, said, you know what, the family thinks that she's probably going to do a better job than you are, so it's time for you to leave. And so 6.5 years of pouring my heart and soul into that place. My first response was to Blair. I said, how do I help this transition go well? So that was in January, and they gave me that semester to finish up the school year, and in the process we decided to go to Traders Point Christian School in Indianapolis, and was there. Just everything was fun because I was building things, and so I got to build a new high school there and build a football stadium. Both places, I started a football program. Just fun doing stuff, and it was really doing well. I was now getting a little bit along in years. I was loving the education and whatever. And recruiters regularly called me and whatever. And finally, a recruiter kept bugging me about this thing up in Wabash, Indiana called Josiah White's.
Well, a lot of mail came with that, and he kept tossing it in the garbage.
And I
We
did.
never
I
got it.
resisted for a long time.
I said,
Anyway.
you think we probably should read that? What's going on?
Yeah. So long story short, I finally filled out an application to help him, just to get him off my back. And they said, well, we've narrowed down to 4 candidates, or we'd like to come interview. And so I went to interview. And I just talked to one of the people who was in the interview last week or 2 weeks ago. He said, I remember when you came in, because you came in and said, I don't want this job. And that's what I said. I don't want this job. I'm liking what I'm doing, but I do want to help you because it looks like a good ministry. And that was on a Friday, and they called me Monday and said they released the other candidates. If you don't come, they're going to start the whole search over again. And so then I said, Jane, you need to go in the car. We got to go look at this place.
We didn't even know where it was or what it is or anything.
So anyway, over the next few months, I ended up going there and had a really good ministry to teenagers that were in trouble and foster care.
Yeah, what is Josiah White?
Yeah, Josiah White's, it's 175 years old. Started as a orphanage back in 1860. And so they do foster care for locations around the state of Indiana, and then for teenagers that do things that are illegal, rather than send them to prison. There's a number of places like Josiah White's that have residential housing. You have them for 6 months and work very hard to get them the right skills, training, education, so they can not go the path of going end up in prison as adults. Yeah. And so our recidivism rate was really low. I mean, over 70% of the kids who went through our program ended up not ever ending up in the system again. And so really worthwhile, but it was 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and we lived on campus.
And we lived on campus, which was interesting, but it was good because you develop the relationships. They saw you every day. We walked our dog out there. The kids loved, connecting that way. We'd have them in our homes for birthdays and
for Christmas Day.
For Christmas Day.
I mean, we were there every day.
Some didn't even have places to go for Christmas, so they came. But so that was a totally different type of ministry because the kids were hurting, but a lot of them were like, I'm really tough,
Yeah.
I'm not going to admit that. And then you finally break through and then in the process of that, Ron helped them get built a little bit separate on a different piece of land, a girls program called Compass Rose for girls that came in. So there were like 20
24, and that was the only private.
That's a private pay, and so parents were like with girls like, I don't know what else to do. So it was dealing with mental health issues, cutting, anything like that. And so they came in. It was an
Gender
expensive
identification.
program, but it really had
Yeah.
We worked with the home and the child, not just like the other program. It was like some of the parents were just checked out anyhow. They didn't care. But
Yeah.
these parents were really wanting
Really,
to do, yeah. So that
yeah.
was a fun ministry to do together.
It was. We
So,
did a lot of that together. It was exhausting, and
yeah.
and Jane ended up towards the end of it. And this was really challenging through COVID because we stayed open through COVID. And so we'd have kids in the home. One would test positive, and they'd be locked down for a week at a time. 12 um,
Kids in one area that were.
that couldn't get, and it was tough. We lost a lot of staff, and anyway, but Jane ended up with congestive heart failure, and so that's when I had, as we understood the seriousness of it, I had to make the decision whether I was going to continue work while she was moving towards passing away, or whether I was going to retire. I wasn't planning on retiring, but I said spending time with her was more important to me. I mean, she was sleeping at that point about 16, 18 hours a day. The prognosis was not good, congestive heart failure, and so
And I had already had 2 pacemakers in the process.
Okay.
But then
trying to help with
trying to
the
help
electrical
with it,
part of the
yeah,
heart,
but it
but
wasn't.
that didn't help with the congestive failure part of the heart. Yeah, I let the board know that. We started working towards that process. Meantime, she was starting to take some medications that were a little bit of help, and got her stabilized so we could move down to Alabama and retire down there, be in a place that was on one level and didn't have the stress of our life, and that really helped. And then we got with a doctor down there who was one of the leading doctors in congestive heart failure in the country, if not the world, and came across a new device called a Barostim, which he now has a pacemaker on this side and a Barostim device on her skin on this side, and that it sends a signal to her carotid artery, which sends to her baroreceptors, which is helping the heart to stabilize and even heal a little bit. So once she started getting more stable, then I was like really bored.
He was bad. You can only do so much golf.
And so I was looking for boards to serve on. And so I'm bringing the story around to how we ended up back here. Is that okay?
Yes, because you're not in Alabama anymore.
No.
Not in Alabama anymore. So how I ended up with that is I was at the CLA conference. I remember this so clearly just yesterday, which Christian Leadership Association, and it's in the Hilton at the airport in O'Hare. And I'm walking from my room back to the elevator, and I see a gentleman walking this way, nobody else on the floor. We're like the 10th floor, and we're walking toward. He goes, "Hey, good to see you." And I looked at him. I go, "Hi." And he goes, "Oh, I thought you were somebody else. Who are you?" And I introduced myself, and I said, "Who are you?" And so he introduces himself, and his name's Chad Williams. And I said, "Oh, well, why are you here?" And he goes, "Well, really, I'm here not for my business, but for the organization that I serve as the board chair." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Life Action."
Wow.
Literally nobody else around us. 10, get in the elevator together. And I go, "Really?" I said, Dell's one of my best friends. Dan Jarvis was here at the time, and was serving. I said, I married Dan. And what? He goes, "Really?" And so we didn't go to our session. We just sat for an hour and talked about where Life Action was at. And so we talked for a while about governance. And he talked, "Well, what were your experience?" And I said, "Well, over the last 18 years, I've learned a lot about governance by serving all the boards as well as serving the CEO role." And he said, "Would you be willing to serve on the board?" And I said, I don't know, maybe." And so he nominated me, and I came to observe a board meeting about 2 years ago as a potential board member. And that's how I got connected.
Wow.
Was by a CLA conference, walking down a hallway.
Random
And
hallway.
so
Wasn't random, but
no, and
right.
we have so many stories in our life where God ordained that that I'd meet Chad, and he would ask me, and end up being on the board.
Yeah. I want to talk about that, but you just said something that I think is very characteristic of both of you. So many moments in your life where God ordained that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you two are particularly attuned to that. And the reason I say that is because you encourage others to be attuned to that very often. You are really seeking the Lord. and seeking his guidance. So,
One of our daily prayers is just to stay in step with Jesus and to listen for his voice. And the more unusual things you do when you listen, the easier it gets. She's really taught me about giving. And so that's one of the ways that we just kind of try to stay in tune, is just looking for where is God at work and where can we join him. One of the privileges I had when I served as lodge director is one year we had Seek Week. Dr. Blackaby was our speaker, and he was staying at the lodge. So every time we weren't in session, I hung out at the lodge, and that was one of his things, is find out where God is and just join him. And so we're always looking for where is that place that God is at work, and what's he asking you to do, and then just go do it.
yeah.
And sometimes it feels really kind of weird, and sometimes, and I mean, just even when I was at Josiah White's, often I'd be in my office, a meeting, I'd be like, at the meeting got done, I'd tell my executive assistant, I said, I'm just going to go for a walk. She knew, where you go? I don't know, but I know I'm supposed to leave. And I would walk and I would see 4 people that I need to have conversation. Didn't know who they were, but it's just, you kind of do these weird things from that perspective.
Somebody's listening and they think, oh, how do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
know? What do you?
Yeah, what prompts you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's listening to the prompting and being mindful that there is a voice that's speaking, and trying as hard as you can to tune into that. And early on, it was like, this seemed really, really strange, and I'm not going to do this. They're going to think
Right.
I'm crazy or whatever. And then the more you do it, the more it just becomes like, this is just
And having
part of your-
yourself
part of your rhythm.
having yourself be available, because I think our society is so busy. People are just like, I'm going to run an errand. I'm not, not looking at anybody or trying to dodge people they know because they don't want to spend time. And I just think to be available to people you know or people you don't know, that's important. And even through this sick thing, I mean, it made me slow down because I have to nap and different things. But it seems like every time when I feel really tired, but I feel alone because I have to sleep so much, I'd go up and do something and there'd be somebody there that I wanted to, that wanted to talk, or has some random thing, and it ends up being a really good conversation. So, in fact, our neighbor across the street's a really special friend now because we kept going, hey, hey, and finally we walked across the street and met each other. And that
Jane
kind
has
of
special friends in every town she's
She
ever been
does.
in, doesn't she?
She really does. Yeah.
thing.
Before the board meeting a year ago, August, we were in Decorah back visiting before we came over. And I told Jan that on the drive over here, I said, I'm going to stay beyond the board meeting. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I don't know.
He knew already that.
I said, I'm going to stay. And she goes, what are you going to do? I don't know. So I just wanted to stay to be there to help. I had no idea what that meant until we got here. But I was prepared to stay. So whatever you'd like me to do here, I'd like to do.
And so you come for Seek Week, you stay.
Stay as a volunteer.
And stay as a volunteer. I will volunteer, and your role was as the comptroller. So
Comptroller.
talk about what that meant.
Man, I had to do something I did not enjoy doing. Again, you look back at your history, and so when I was getting my MBA, I had to take graduate level classes in accounting and finance. So I had the ability, had the background, and not the interest. But you do what God calls you to do. And so I had to figure out a plan, and so I'll volunteer for 3 months and then figure it out from there. You can take it from there. That was my plan.
And so personally, you have decided, really, again, you sold the house
Filled the house, yep.
and you're all in.
Right.
You've moved up here.
We have moved up here. It's been a real blessing to us because of relationship, and
Yeah.
because we're in a ministry that we just sense God moving all the time, and you get to see that. One of the privileges we had this summer is every Tuesday night we went to camp to have dinner. And every Tuesday, first one, Jane said, where are we going to sit? I said, follow me. And she said, I don't know. But we had the people we were praying for, and we would go sit with somebody, and we'd have incredible hour and a half of conversation.
Very
Just
good.
every time. Didn't know who it was going to be. One of them was with a former staff member. We got to sit and just do ministry together for an hour, hour and a half.
And
with
it
them.
wasn't just us ministering to them; it's them ministering to us. Like we'd get done talking, like, "Well, we're gonna pray for you." You know what I mean? It wasn't just us
Right.
guiding, and it was like they really wanted Life Action to be strong and to continue and to. They loved the camp. They couldn't say as much, just all the things, and they just said, "Let's pray about this," which is really encouraging.
Yeah,
So-
one start praying over our kids, honestly.
it was just like,
it was like,
whoa, I walked away like, wow, I'm glad I went to dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I really felt a lot better about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said this a few times on here, and Dell said it. I get it from him, but he talks about revival happening through relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're seeing that
Right.
left and right.
Yeah,
Right.
we are.
Exactly.
Right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
God's doing something in that.
So I'm very encouraged for the future of Life Action, whether we're involved another day, month, year, whatever. I'm very encouraged by the future because any organization rises and falls with its leadership. And I feel very good about our senior leadership team, and I feel very strong about our board right now. We brought in incredible board members that have really good governance understanding, but also technical understanding in things like finance that we were not as strong as we should have been.
That's great. I'm sure that's great for people to hear. So when we're a ministry, right, and we're dependent upon others coming alongside us to support, why do you think it's important to support this ministry? What is it about Life Action where we're contributing to the kingdom?
Yeah.
What do we
So two things come to mind. The first is so I have an appeal here. We need more people to come join us in the ministry. And so there may be someone who hears about this or hears it, and God's prompting their heart to go, I should do what that guy did and actually pray about leaving what I'm doing and come join. We need people at every level to come join us. And so that'd be the first thing, because you're part of reviving relationship through transformative events. I mean, whether you end up coming and working at the camp and mowing grass, or move into a leadership role or a speaking role, whatever, I think we're just ready to see this ministry blossom, but we can't do it without people. And then I've raised money in my ministries, and I've never asked people to give to the ministry I'm in. I've asked them to give the ministry that God puts on their heart. And first, after your regular giving to your current obligations, or your current where God's prompted you in terms of your church and anybody else. But if God has blessed you with the resources, don't invest them in things that will deteriorate. Invest them in eternity. Because as you've done beautifully, the ripple effect is incredible. It isn't just that person that you see right there. It's that person on another person on another person, and that multiplicative of that effort that comes out when one life changes, how many other lives are changed on that because of that ripple in the pond, as you've beautifully said. So you get to be part of that, whether you are a prayer partner, whether you're a giving partner, whether you volunteer, or whether you actually come serve in some way.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about our, stateside missionaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the ministry is made up
Yeah.
of.
It
right?
really
I
is.
mean, it's people who have been impacted, who now can't imagine doing anything else but creating a space for others to experience
Right.
God's love and extend that.
Right.
Right. And so,
We had sat down at for that dinner on Tuesday night, and there was a pastor there, and they're like, "Well, how's it working for you?" And he goes, "Well, I bring 10 families with me, and we call it our Sabbath week, and we all are involved in what's going on, but we also take time for our group as a self to strengthen our ministry by using your ministry, and how important it was, and how it allowed them to be able to take a breath, but also just to be able to like, okay, what's this look like for us? What's it, we love Life Action. How can we help them? So it was really a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, they just felt the prayer covering over the
Yeah.
top of them. And
Yeah.
when you're in ministry, you're in a battle, and so they feel like this is a Sabbath rest for us because we're not in a battle here. We're being fed and being re-energized to go back into the field.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to look at it.
That's really good. And I want to circle back because you're on the board. You're now what is your official title?
My official title is a Chief Operating Officer.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in retirement, right? Came out of retirement,
Yeah.
Chief Operating Officer, board member.
Yeah.
But you're a supporter and a contributor. I mean, you've believed so much in this ministry that you're giving your time and your treasure and your talents, all
Right.
three. Sometimes we're only asked to give one, but you
Put 'em
just
all
go
in.
all in.
Yeah. We take joy out of giving, and it should be, right. If it isn't joyful, if it isn't part of that, it was, I don't know, a few months ago, we were sitting someplace, and she goes, I go, what? She goes, and she pointed to someone who is raising support here, and she goes, can we do $100 a month? Of course. What am I going to say, right? It was just,
Right.
it was just,
It was someone trying to start up, and I said that person needs help just to get motivated, because I wanted them to be able to
be more.
stay.
So we're just always looking for ways that it brings such joy to both of us, mostly her, but no, we just
Yeah.
we do that. And I was talking to my brother-in-law who recently, and he's done very well and has his own foundation and such, and for the first time gave to the ministry this year.
Yeah.
But he said, you got your retirement fund or whatever you have, and now you're working again. He goes, what are you doing with your money? And I laughed at him. I said, what do you think? He goes, you're still giving it away, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, but don't you think you ought to be saving some of that? And I go, what for what? It just gives us more money to give away, because I am taking somewhat of a salary now, and and it's like, it just gives us opportunity to give more money,
And he was
and it's such joy.
in the way back before that person became a believer. He said, "Well, Ron, what are you doing with your investments? How are your investments?" And Ron looked and said, "Well, we're investing in the Lord."
I started-
did not understand that at all.
I started naming ministries and missionaries we
yeah.
were supporting, and so it I know, it's just a life of freedom to do that. Every time you do that, it just makes you more free. I don't know any other way to explain it.
Well, you see business folks or people with means, and there does sometimes tend to be some anxiety
Mhm.
around that.
Right.
And when I look at you both, there's never any anxiety about, there just seems to be joy in the giving. And I think it comes from, your deep philosophy of giving and what really matters.
Right. Yeah.
And if you move as much as we have, you realize things don't really matter.
Yeah.
Once you fill up your truck and you move and realize how much stuff you have,
Yeah.
the number of times we had they provide for the movers, and then we do, this the last time we rented our own U-Haul, a small one, and our stuff fit in there, and it was like, things that you think are so important in life are not really that important, except the people you're with and
Yeah.
your families and stuff. So
And you both have had 47 years.
47
Yeah, just
years
celebrated
last
47
Monday. Yeah.
years.
So
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah, yeah. So last question then. When you, for however long you'll be here, we don't know. God
No.
will tell you.
Yeah.
What are your prayers for our ministry?
I guess I'm more concerned right now about the depth than the breadth.
Mm.
That the things that we are talking about, the DNA, the way we're trying to articulate it, that becomes so deep and ingrained that as God brings the breadth, that we don't lose the depth, that we, I think, are really, really starting to establish. One of the board reports, one of the board members put in the 10 or the cutting edge commitments in that document, and the responses, and that becomes ingrained into who we are. someone a lot smarter than me said, if you take care of the depth, God takes care of the breadth. And so I just pray that we have the depth there, and then that we're good stewards. I'm a risk taker, so I'm hoping we'll have multiple more outreaches than we do now in a lot of different ways in the years ahead. That's up to God, not to us. But we're going to be good planners and good stewards, and we're going to take care of our own and develop a culture that embraces that. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about we just rolled out our taking care of our staff with a benevolence fund by our own staff, right?
Yeah.
Just taking care of our own and having that culture of that, so that when the attacks come, and they do, because the evil one hates to see the ripple effect, that we're going to stand firm on who we are and what we believe.
Love that.
Mhm.
What about you, Jane?
My prayer is that we can come back and be a supportive, close network, to be able to send people out and then have them return and feel safe again. Because when you go, here it's kind of everyone's praying about stuff. You're just kind of surrounded by it. But then when they leave and try to do ministry outside of it, they feel, maybe anxious, or they're not getting the support and stuff. And I just always want home base to be like coming back off the road. You're loved, you're taken care of, we're thankful for what you're doing, what you're saying, and just giving them the feeling of safety and encouragement.
Mhm.
I love that. Okay, this is really my last question. As the ministry that you both done together, and it doesn't seem to matter where or when or how. I think your top skill might be adaptable based on this conversation. But you've done it together. Looking back years from now, when you're in heaven, what do you hope your legacy was that you left here?
Just being a mom, I hope that our family and our children can really be following the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that they would be passionate about that.
They'd be passionate about that.
I guess that's what I would hope is that people would say that we as a couple and individually walk closely with the Lord.
Yeah.
That we.
Because isn't that what you want on your tombstone?
Mm-hmm.
He walked with the Lord.
Yeah,
like
he walked with the
Enoch,
Lord.
when they say Enoch walked with the Lord.
Yeah, Enoch's my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
he
So,
walked with the Lord and he was no more.
yeah.
So that's what I hope people say is, not that he was good business or but he listened and walked with the Lord.
Exactly right.
Well, I can speak on all of our behalf. We're all so happy you're here. And I think I told Ron months ago, just having you here is a comfort.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
And just thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to sit down at the table here with me and share your life story, but also your walk with us this last. So we're so glad you're here.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for Changed Lives, a podcast from Life Action. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, would you consider joining us in this mission during our year-end campaign? Nearly 80% of Life Action's annual revenue comes from donations from ministry partners who help fuel revival in hearts, homes, and churches across the country.